Hey, Jim Remley here with eRealEstateCoach.com. We're talking today about merchandising your listings. We often talk about price as the #1 reason why a home will or won't sell, and that's extremely important and obviously the first thing we should be talking about. But when it comes to marketing the property, we can also do some things to really set your property apart, to differentiate it from the marketplace. There's a lot of inventory coming to market. We want to find ways to set your listing apart. I'm going to give you some ideas here that are being done across the country, and one of them is virtual staging. Here's an example of a listing, kind of a standard look in the kitchen, but with virtual staging, this is electronically done. There's nobody moving furniture in. This is just done on a computer, and they modify the listing by putting in some different furniture, sometimes some different paint, different color schemes, and they make the room come alive. Here's another example in that same house, kind of a standard living room, which you'd expect, a nice living room actually, but by putting a little bit of a different spin on it with virtual staging, here's how that room could look. Now, one thing to point out is if you're doing virtual staging, you need to note on the picture that it's been virtually staged. You don't want to have a buyer come into the house and be like, hey, what's wrong with this house? This is what I saw online. It's very similar to new construction where you say for illustration purposes only. Very similar notation somewhere on that photo. Here's an example in that same home of a bedroom, kind of a standard kid's room. You want to represent that room better to the marketplace. Here's an example of how that room could look. And they've actually done something kind of cool. They've shown two different versions of the same room here. Here's another way that it could look in terms of not being necessarily a bedroom, but maybe an office. So some ideas on merchandising your listing to set it apart in the marketplace. Something else that we should be looking at is, oh, by the way, here's some companies that you might use for those services. VHT.com is the company that I showed you the photos. They're the ones that did the work on that particular listing. Some other companies that do it, WhyNotHomes.com does a great job. You probably know this guy, Drew Scott from Property Brothers. He uses Pad Styler, so that's another company that does virtual home staging. At my company, we like to use a company called BoxBrownie.com. They do a great job for a lot of my agents, and they do some other cool things. In addition to virtual staging, they do some day to dusk shots. So you can see here this house was photographed during the day, but they were able to convert it to a dusk shot. Here's another example of that same thing. They've actually added fire to the fire pit to make it look even more inviting as well. So BoxBrownie.com. Here's one more idea when it comes to merchandising your listing. We know that the millennial market, huge part of the market demographic that's buying homes, over 1/3 of the homes being bought in America today are by millennials. So how do you appeal to the millennial generation? Well, a lot of them now are on Instagram, of course, and so being Insta-friendly with your marketing is super important. So what does it mean to be Instagram worthy? It means you have great photography and you really show the house off in a really beautiful way. And using a grid format for your photos can give people a lot of photos instead of them having to scroll through it, they can look at it in one shot. Another thing to keep in mind is your description is so important. So here's an example of this kind of standard office setting, but they've used a great kind of creative description. It says, surely, if they asked her to come all the way down to the campus office, the news was going to be good, right? So kind of a funny take on that picture. Here's another example. This one says, dear house, I could see myself spending a lot of time on that front porch yelling at my neighbors to keep it down. So kind of funny, kind of ironic, engaging. And the last one I'll show you, this one says, 1911 was a big year. The Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre. International Women's Day was celebrated for the first time, and this gorgeous craftsman was built. So great verbiage there. So being super creative with your marketing, really setting it apart, differentiating it from the horde, from the pack, and really merchandising listings. Hope that helps you today. If you want some more ideas like this, go visit us over at eRealEstateCoach.com. We've got texts, we've got tools, we've got strategy. So we'd love to see you over there. Have a great day and good selling.